A millionaire thinks he's got everything under control, but what happens when his maid walks into a trap made of diamonds, gold, and stacks of cash? His plan to catch her in the act backfires, and it leads to a moment that will leave you shocked. Get ready to witness how one woman takes control and leaves the millionaire in tears. Maria, his maid, was the latest in a long line of employees. She had been working for him for nearly a year now. At 24, Maria was strikingly beautiful, with deep, expressive eyes and skin that glowed with warmth. She was respectful, quiet, and efficient, qualities Gregory admired, but they also made him curious. Gregory couldn't shake the feeling that there was something she was hiding. There was an air of mystery about her, and he didn't like the idea of not knowing everything about the people who worked for him. After all, in his world, secrets were dangerous. They had the power to destroy. And so, Gregory decided that it was time to find out what Maria was hiding. He knew that people, no matter how disciplined, always had a weakness. And he knew exactly what hers might be: money. What could be more tempting than the fortune he kept locked away in his study? So, he devised a plan, a trap that would expose her. Gregory made sure to leave his personal safe wide open that night. He knew Maria would be in the study cleaning after hours. The safe was always locked, filled with cash, diamonds, and expensive gold sets, items too tempting for anyone to resist. But Gregory wasn't just going to leave it open carelessly. No, he set the scene perfectly. He made sure the jewels and gold were neatly arranged and that the stacks of money were displayed prominently, just as a lure. The room was dimly lit, the shadows adding to the atmosphere of mystery and wealth. Gregory watched from the shadows, ready to pounce. He knew Maria wouldn't be able to resist the temptation. She would take something, anything, and he would catch her in the act. The perfect trap. As Maria entered the study, she unknowingly walked right into Gregory's trap. The stage was set, and Gregory's heart raced in anticipation. He was about to expose her. Maria entered the study as she had done many times before. The soft tap of her heels echoed through the quiet house as she made her way across the room. Dressed in her classic black and white maid's uniform, she moved with grace and purpose, her hands already holding the cleaning supplies she would need for the task. The room was dim, the golden light of a nearby lamp casting a warm glow over the mahogany bookshelves and polished furniture. As she walked towards the desk to begin her work, something caught her eye. The safe, always locked, stood wide open. This was unusual, very unusual. It wasn't like Gregory to leave such an important item exposed. Maria paused for a moment, her heart rate quickening. She approached cautiously, as if instinctively knowing something wasn't right. The contents inside the safe gleamed with an irresistible allure. There were stacks of $100 bills, their crisp edges shining in the soft light. Gold sets, diamonds, and glittering jewelry were arranged neatly, their surfaces reflecting the light in mesmerizing ways. For a moment, Maria stood there, frozen. The sight of such wealth was enough to tempt anyone. She felt her breath quicken as she looked at the jewels, each one a symbol of the power and riches Gregory had. It was so easy to imagine herself taking just a small piece, a diamond or a stack of cash, something to change her life forever. But then, as quickly as the thought entered her mind, Maria shook her head. She wasn't like everyone else. She had come to this country to escape a past that was far from perfect, and she had worked hard to rebuild her life. Taking anything from Gregory would destroy everything she had fought for. It wasn't worth it. Yet, there was still the question, why was the safe left open? Maria couldn't ignore the feeling that something was off. She stepped closer, her eyes scanning the contents, her mind racing. She knew Gregory, and she knew he wasn't careless. This had to be a test. She noticed an envelope resting on top of the pile of money. It was addressed to her. Her name was written neatly on the front, in Gregory's familiar handwriting. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should even touch it. But her curiosity got the better of her. Slowly, she picked it up, opening it cautiously. Inside were photographs, letters, and documents from her past, details of a life she had left behind, a life she was trying to forget. The shock was immediate. Gregory knew everything. He had been watching her, tracking her every move, and now he was using her past against her. Her heart sank. She had walked straight into his trap, but not in the way he had expected. Maria's expression remained unchanged as she placed the envelope back on the desk, her thoughts swirling. She wasn't going to let him win. No matter what, she wouldn't let Gregory use her past to control her. Gregory's patience finally ran out. He stepped from his hidden corner and into the study, his footsteps echoing off the marble floor. The sound of his movements was deliberate, calculated, like the approach of a predator. Maria's eyes immediately lifted from the safe to meet his, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew he had been watching her all along. He had expected her to fall for the temptation, to take what wasn't hers, but he was wrong. Maria hadn't touched a thing. "You shouldn't have done that," Gregory said, his voice cold and heavy with accusation. His tall figure loomed over her, his eyes narrowing as he took in the sight of the envelope she had carefully returned to the desk. "You really think you can hide your past from me? You think you can come in here, do your job, and pretend like you're something you're not?" Maria didn't flinch. She held her ground, standing tall in her black and white maid's uniform. She looked him squarely in the eyes, her gaze unwavering. "I've done nothing wrong, Gregory," she replied, her voice steady but firm. "What's in the safe, and what's in that envelope, has nothing to do with who I am today." Gregory's lips curled into a smirk. He believed he had the upper hand, and he wanted to make sure Maria knew it. "Oh, but it does, Maria. Everything about you is a lie. You thought you could hide, but I've seen right through you. I know your secrets. You think you can just work here and walk away with everything you want? Not anymore. I have control now." Maria took a deep breath, holding back the anger that bubbled within her. Gregory's words stung, but they didn't break her. She wasn't going to let him dictate her life anymore. "You don't control me, Gregory," she said, her voice calm but carrying a quiet strength. "I'm not here for your money. I never was. I came here to work. To rebuild. To leave the past behind." Gregory stepped closer, his eyes scanning her face as if he could read her every thought. "You think you're better than this? You think you can walk away from everything I've built? This is my world. I run things. You're just a part of it. You have no choice but to listen to me." But Maria wasn't listening. She had heard enough. Her eyes, once filled with uncertainty, were now clear and strong. "I don't need your world, Gregory," she said softly. "I don't need your money. I don't need anything from you." Gregory's smile faltered. He had expected fear. He had expected to break her. But instead, he saw a woman standing tall, unshaken, unwavering in the face of his power. Maria turned, her heels clicking softly on the floor as she walked toward the door, her steps measured and confident. The power she had reclaimed wasn't in the diamonds or the cash, but in her own strength, her own will to walk away from the game he tried to play. As she reached the door, she paused and looked back one last time. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice steady. "And I'm never coming back." Gregory stood frozen, staring at her as she walked out of his life, his wealth, his power, and his control now meaningless. Maria didn't wait for Gregory's response as she made her way toward the door. Her movements were fluid and graceful, each step purposeful. The soft clicking of her heels against the marble floor was the only sound in the study now. She had spoken her truth, and Gregory's words, harsh and taunting just moments ago, had lost their power. The wealth in the open safe, glistening with diamonds, gold, and cash, no longer mattered. Gregory could keep it all. Maria had walked away from far more than that before. As she neared the door, Gregory's voice broke the silence, his tone different now, no longer dripping with authority, but with frustration and disbelief. "You can't just leave," he said, his words sharp as he took a step forward, desperate to stop her. "You can't just walk away from everything. You need me. You need this job. You'll never get what you want without me. You're nothing without me." Maria stopped and turned slowly to face him, her expression calm, but her eyes intense. "You're wrong, Gregory," she replied softly, but her words carried weight. "I don't need you, and I never did. You think your money gives you power over people? That's where you're wrong. You don't own anyone, not me, not anyone else in your life." Gregory's face twisted in disbelief. His eyes flickered with a mix of anger and confusion, as though he couldn't fathom why Maria wasn't falling into the trap he had set. "You think you're going to walk out of here and everything will just be fine? You'll never make it without me." Maria's lips curled into a small, almost sad smile. "I've made it this far without you, Gregory," she said, her voice steady. "I've had nothing, and I've fought my way to where I am. I'm not going to let you break me now." Her words hit Gregory like a punch to the gut. He had expected her to crumble under pressure, to beg for mercy, or at least be afraid. Instead, she stood there, calm and strong, unaffected by the wealth he had flaunted before her, unaffected by the power he thought he wielded over her. Maria gave one last glance toward the open safe, her eyes briefly scanning the sparkling jewels and cash inside. But it was clear to her now that none of it had any hold on her. She wasn't defined by Gregory's wealth. She never had been. "I'll leave you with your riches," she said softly, her gaze locking with his one last time. "But I won't be a part of this anymore. This game you play, it's not for me." With that, Maria turned and walked out of the study, her back straight and her steps confident. The door clicked softly behind her, leaving Gregory standing in the middle of the room, surrounded by wealth, but now painfully aware of how empty it all truly was. For the first time, Gregory realized that money and power couldn't control a person who knew their own worth. And in that moment, he was left with nothing. Gregory stood alone in the study, the once comforting presence of his riches now only a reminder of his failure. The open safe, overflowing with diamonds, gold, and stacks of cash, seemed to mock him. The spark of excitement he had felt moments ago when he believed he had trapped Maria had fizzled out, replaced by a heavy sense of emptiness. His grip tightened on the edge of the desk, and he slowly sank into the chair behind him. The glow from the golden light above cast long shadows across the room, and for the first time, the luxurious furnishings felt cold, distant, and unimportant. He had underestimated her. He thought Maria would be like everyone else, easily tempted, easily controlled by the lure of wealth. But instead, she had shown him something he hadn't seen in years, strength and self-respect. She hadn't flinched when faced with his fortune, hadn't been swayed by his threats. And now she was gone. She had left him, not because she had no choice, but because she had chosen to walk away. Gregory looked at the safe again. The diamonds caught the light, sparkling as if mocking his broken sense of power. He had spent so many years building this empire, accumulating wealth to prove his worth, to show that he was untouchable. But Maria had just stripped him of everything. She had walked out, leaving him with his riches but nothing else, no control, no respect, no connection. His empire, once the symbol of his power, now felt hollow. His mind raced. How had she done it? How had she seen through him so easily? He couldn't understand it. He had every advantage, money, status, and influence. Yet, it was Maria, the maid, who had the strength to leave it all behind, to not be swayed by his power. Gregory had spent his life accumulating things, but Maria had something far more valuable, self-worth. As he sat in the silence of the study, the sound of her footsteps still echoed in his mind. The door she had walked through had closed, but Gregory was still trapped in the very world he had built. A world of isolation, of wealth without meaning, of power without purpose. The diamonds, the gold, the cash, they no longer held the same allure. They were just objects now, things that couldn't replace what he had lost. In the end, Gregory realized that true power wasn't in controlling others, but in having the strength to walk away when you didn't need to stay. Maria had taught him that, and as he sat alone in the study, surrounded by everything he thought mattered, Gregory finally understood that sometimes, letting go was the greatest act of strength. And so, as the weight of his own failure sank in, Gregory Blackstone was left with nothing but the cold, silent emptiness of his mansion and the haunting memory of Maria's words, "I don't need you."